Well, good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to sincerely apologize for delivering this presentation via video. Due to departmental scheduling and delays in my travel permission, I am currently at the airport, hoping to catch the tail end of this conference in person. So despite this, I'm honored to present our research titled Ageism, Loneliness, and the Built Environment, Shaping Older Women's Play in Public Housing Estates. So this work explores the intersection of social marginalization and spatial design. Well, since I'm unable to take questions live, I have taken the liberty of utilizing the 5-minute Q&A slot to extend my presentation, and I will use this full 50 minutes to share our research findings in greater detail. So if you have any questions or feedback, please feel free to reach out to me via email. My name is Izzy. I am currently an assistant professor in the Department of Social Sciences and Policy Studies at the Education University of Hong Kong, and I also serve as the Vice President and Director of Happy Aging Lab Foundation. Okay, so let's start with the context. Hong Kong is facing a severe aging crisis. Currently, 22% of our population is aged 65 or above. What is crucial to this understanding is that over 60% of these older adults live in public rental housing estates. So they represent a massive demographic living in high-density environments that will define their experience of aging. Within this demographic, our study specifically focuses on female older adults. As in these environments, women experience a unique set of challenges. They face disproportionate exposure to systematic ageism, they suffer from higher rates of chronic loneliness, and they are the ones most affected by critically deficient communal infrastructure. So why do we focus on females, and what are their vulnerabilities? So the answer lies in this vicious circle. Female older adults are trapped in a downward spiral driven by both ageism and sexism. They often face what we call benevolent ageism, a parentalistic view that sees them as frail or dependent. So this underdetermines their self-esteem, fosters learned helplessness, and accelerates mental health decline. Yet most policy interventions fail to address this specific gendered dimension. So to break this vicious circle, we propose a solution that is often overlooked but highly effective: play. Now we must redefine what play means. It is not just for children. For older women, play encompasses a broad spectrum of behaviors, from rule-based games and creative pursuits to simple unstructured social interactions. So research confirms that play is vital for active aging, offering physical mobility, cognitive maintenance, and emotional stress relief. So despite these proven benefits, play in later life remains a significantly underexplored domain. It is overshadowed by a historical biases that associates play primarily with childhood. Consequently, we often fail to see the value in the leisure activities of older adults, dismissing them as merely passing time instead of meaningful engagement. Our review of the literature identified major gaps. First, there's a gap in context. Most existing studies focus on institutional settings like nursing homes, and there is a severe lack of research on community dwelling populations, those who are aging in place within high-density urban environments, like Hong Kong. And the second gap is in conceptualization. Research often focuses on structured, measurable activities like exercise classes. It neglects spontaneous, self-directed play. As scholars Hart and Vincent argues, play should be viewed not only as an activity, but as a state of being and an expression of freedom. So why does filling in these gaps matter? Because play is the primary engine for social integration. It is the antidote to the loneliness we mentioned earlier. So by understanding play, we can understand how to reconnect those women with their community and improve their mental health. So based on our literature review, we've developed a triangular theoretical framework to guide our study. So as shown in this diagram, the experiences of older women are shaped by their interplay of three distinct forces: ageism, loneliness, and the built environment. So these are not isolated factors. They feed into one another in a continuous loop, creating the specific contexts in which these women live and play. Okay, so here let's break down the first pillar, ageism. So we categorize this into two distinct types. First, on the left is the external ageism. So this is hostile. It includes prejudicial attitudes from neighbors and institutional policies that stereotype older adults as burdens. And second, on the right is self-imposed ageism. So this is internalized. It happens when older women believe these negative stereotypes about themselves, leading them to restrict their own activities, and both forms could actively suppress their willingness to engage in play. And the second pillar is loneliness, and we define this not just as being alone, but as a subjective experience of social isolation. So the relationship here is bidirectional. On one hand, loneliness limits access to social networks, making group-based play such as card games impossible. And on the other hand, the absence of play deepens that loneliness. Conversely, if we can reintroduce play, we can foster the social connections necessary to reduce this isolation. So play acts as the bridge back to the community. The third and the final pillar is the built environment. So in the context of public housing, this is defined by four physical factors. The first one is facility provision. Are there actual parks and community centers available? And the second one is accessibility. Are these places within walkable distance, and are the pathways age-friendly enough? And the third factor is safety. So is there adequate living lighting and crime control so women could feel safe when they go out? The last one, but not least, green space, is the quality of the environment inviting. So if any of these physical environments fail, the environment becomes a barrier that reinforces both loneliness and ageism. So to investigate these complex issues, we employed an exploratory qualitative research design. So we recruited 39 female participants aged 65 to 95 living in public housing estates in Hong Kong. And we used purposive sampling to ensure diversity in their health status and social engagement levels. Data was collected through in-depth, face-to-face, semi-structured interviews. So each session lasted between like 60 to 90 minutes, and we asked them about their daily routines, their experiences of play, their perceptions of ageism, and their willingness of loneliness within their living environment. So for our analysis, we used a rigorous dual approach. So we began with thematic analysis to identify the key recurring themes. And we then applied semantic network analysis and word cloud analysis to visualize the results. So our analysis revealed a fundamental paradox regarding how these women experience autonomy as well as engagement. So first look at this network graph for active play, and you will notice that the biggest, most central node is chatting. So it connects to dancing, mourning, and friends. So this structure reveals that for these women, active play is fundamentally social and self-organized. It is not about following rules, it is about connecting with people. So the sentiment here is overwhelmingly positive, 90% positive emotions. So listen to participant number 9. She says that some folks click well, super chatty, and it makes you happy. They call me laughing grandma. So this quote confirms that when women have the autonomy to organize their own play, it generates joy and a strong sense of identity. Now contrast that with passive play, so activities organized by the community centers. So the network changes, as you can see, completely. The central nodes become sign, draw, and center. The focus shifts from people to process, and the discourse is no longer about connection. It started to become about navigating bureaucracy. And consequently, the sentiment drops to only 32 positive. Why? Because of the lottery system here. So participants number 3 explains her infrastructure, like showing up doesn't help if you don't get drawn. You cannot get in. So this will many programs are inadvertently creating exclusion, turning leisure into a stressful game of chance. So moving to the psychological barriers, we found 3 forms of ageism. The first is explicit self-ageism. So look at the note here, knee, work, hurt, pain. So their discourse is dominated by their physical alignments. So they define themselves by what their bodies can no longer do. And this physical decline leads to a loss of self-worth. So 80% of the sentiment is negative. Here we can see that participant number 24 shared a heartbreaking sentiment. I worked very hard when I was young. Now that I'm old, I'm not capable anymore. Nothing else hurts, just my knees. I don't go walking anymore. So here, pain is not just a sensation, it becomes a reason to withdraw from the world. And the second form is implicit self-ageism. The most predominant word is in this cloud is don't. So this is a network negotiation. It represents the things they refuse to do, not because they can't, but because they feel they shouldn't. And this manifests as self-censorship. Quotes like "I don't chat much" or "I don't dare ask" show that they have internalized a lower social status. So they are proactively making themselves smaller and quieter to avoid being a burden, effectively erasing their own presence in the community. And the third form is ageism from others. So the central nodes here are greet and respond, but the context is negative. It is about the failure of neighbors or to greet or respond, and this map represents social rejection. So this external ageism is very painful. 29% of participants reported being ignored. Participant number 8 said, even though I say good morning to them, they don't even bother looking at me. So these microaggressions act as a form of social death, signaling to these women that they no longer matter, which further discourages them from leaving their apartments. Well, now let's look at loneliness. Also here, the network centers on people, husband and daughter. So this confirms that loneliness is deeply tied to the loss of family roles and the death of spouses. So the absence of these key figures creates a void. However, we found a surprising paradox, like 35% of participants viewed solitude positively. We must distinguish between unwanted isolation and choosing solitude. So for many widows, this is the first time in their lives they are free from caring duties and they value that freedom. And finally, how does the built environment influence all of this? The nodes here are place, estate, supermarket, and road. So these are the physical actors of their lives, but they are often discussed as obstacles. Dissatisfaction with the environment is high, like 84% negative. So participants here, number 23, describes the geography of exclusion. I don't go there. The road is very steep. I walk slowly and I'm afraid when cars pass by. So here, steep roads, heavy doors, and fast cars physically hurt them, cut them off from the play space we discussed earlier. So to conclude, our analysis covers the fundamental autonomy paradox. Self-organized play generates high satisfaction, like 90%, but it's hard to sustain without support. Meanwhile, structured programs yield low satisfaction due to rigid access barriers, and we are failing to support the autonomy that older women actually very crave for. And we also identified that ageism is not monolithic. It manifests as physical internalization, such as my bad knees, social withdrawal, I don't want to go, and external exclusion, such as the ignored greetings. So these factors compound with the stigma of living in public housing to create spoiled identities. Furthermore, we must recognize the duality of loneliness. It can be freeing, and policy should respect that need for solitude while preventing isolation. So, regarding the environment, vertical mobility issues and poor urban design are shrinking the life spaces of these women. Well, so what are the implications? So for service providers, we need to move away from lottery-based systems to inclusive, participant-driven models. And for urban designers, we need to design for spontaneous encounters. And this means creating social nodes with seating, ensuring safe road crossings, and bringing amenities closer. And we must design spaces that invite them out rather than shut them in. So as a conclusion, by recognizing older women in public housing not merely as passive recipients of care, but as active agents navigating complex constraints, we can design cities that truly support their dignity and joy. And this is the end of my sharing today. Thank you so much for your attention.